Thank you everyone for joining us in conversation tonight. This sort of conversation is organized by Tripspace, a venue, independent dance organization in London. My name is Juliana. I'm one of the founding members of this space. Also behind the Tripspace host screen, there's my colleague Monse. Monse and I opened Tripspace together in 2013. And we're really honored tonight to host Nita Little in conversation tonight. And yeah, we managed to grab 60 minutes of her time, and we're really thankful that she agreed to talk to us. So yes, thank you for joining us in this conversation. And it might be that some people kind of join us a little bit later, but we'll just get started. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are recording this event. So yes, please feel free to use the camera however you want. If you want it off, please do have it off if you prefer that, or otherwise leave it on.
It's really nice to see you.
Yes, exactly.
It's very different to talk to a blank screen of names.
Exactly. So the way we thought we'd structure this is that I introduce Nita a little bit and the project, the reason basically we've invited Nita to chat with us. And then I have a couple of questions to ask Nita, but then we'll open the space for everyone to have, ask questions. So it's very much a conversation, basically. So yes. Hi, Nita.
Hi. Hi.
Thank you for joining us. And yeah, we are really honored to hear more about your somatic communication in practice. And this conversation sits in the landscape of a project called Make Movement Matter, which spans sort of for 5-6 months, basically until February 2023, in which we are sort of starting to ask questions about the interdependent links between dance, science, and well-being, sort of starting also to catalyze conversations around the health and well-being of the independent dance sector and how we can maybe seek for improvements and how we can support the independent dance sector a little bit more, maybe in thinking about these questions, basically. And yes, the first thing I would like to ask you, for those maybe in the conversation who haven't met you before or who don't know about somatic communication, what is somatic communication?
Right. Before we begin, I'd like to do one thing. Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You need it.
I would like us all to just put our hand on our heart. Just start there. So everybody's checking in with themselves. Everybody's feeling inwardly, allowing that possibility that your feeling state, which is extremely fluid, is present here in this conversation, so that when we talk to one another, we're also listening from the heart. We're responding from the heart, because that's going to be important to what I do. Today is Thanksgiving in the United States, and Thanksgiving is a holiday rooted in the colonization of this continent. And I want to, I want to juxtapose a lot of what I'm talking about, maybe not against, but I'd like to look at it within the context of this Thanksgiving. because it matters, because it speaks greatly to what somatic communication can be. I'm going to, we have a newsletter. Leanne Kowalski is here, and together we have a newsletter and in the newsletter, I do these little asides. And because you asked that question, the most recent newsletter, I wrote a little thing about what somatic communication is. And I'm going to take a moment to just read it because, and then I'll speak beyond that. So I have been investigating somatic communication through a lifetime of dancing contact improvisation. Contact improvisation, if you don't know, is a dance form in which people share weight. They are in, it's kind of like a cross between a martial art and surfing. And it requires a level of embodied communication that is significant because your life is at hand in it. I also recognize that the implications of how we speak across bodies in very fast time durations was not understood. So I returned to get a PhD specifically to investigate and find language to describe how we do that particular bit of magic. How is it that we speak very fast to each other? Not in body language, and I'll tell you more about that. When I say somatic communication, I mean that which we do that speaks with far greater refinement than body language, which I might define as the gestural organization of physical actions, posturings, and positionings that indicate feeling and thought. So if I fold my arms over my chest, if I put my hand on my chest even, that I would call body language. These physical practices determine our response to social aspects of our relationships with other humans and sometimes animals, and they tend to be very slow, chunky, and clunky as communication. Conversely, somatic communication is the interiority of our embodiment within actions, positions, and postures, like putting your hand on your heart, that determines the web of organization of our physical mental attention as a continuum from our mental physicality to our correspondent with whom we are in communication within both the human and the non-human spheres. So it is essentially everything that's going on within our actions, positions, and postures. It's faster than any of those. If it follows a notion that we can form boundaries that are determinative of our selfhood in communicating to others or the world, we can interbe. To use Thich Nhat Hanh's term, we can co-compose our beings through physical mental actions in which we identify as the one we are present to. So if I'm doing a contact dance, for instance, and this is where it came from for me, I realized at some point that my partner's body was my body when I was engaged with that being. On the level of weight, it's obvious. My body, my partner's structure would be supporting me in very much the ways my own body would be supporting me. Whatever happened to my partner, I knew instantaneously in the same moment as my partner knew it. So in a very kind of functional and practical sense, my partner's body was my body. And I started to wonder what happens when I allow my identity to be inclusive of my partner. And so when I use the term somatic communication, I'm actually talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that we we are the things we attend to when we allow physical attention to be a practice. So a great deal of what I understand as somatic communication has to do with our ability to be in attendance, to be present to whatever it is we are in communication with. This form of embodied physical practice, this is a form of embodied physical practice that requires an ability to move our somatic practice beyond the skin sac, beyond our own culturally defined being, individuated being, and into a larger field of being. This allows for us to recognize the immensely subtle information that flows between bodies. We begin to hold ourselves, our sense of ourself, lightly, being easily moved by peripheral forces of communication. We co-organize and discover we now are in a realm in which correspondence, coincidence, synchronicity, and other forms of simultaneity appear. Okay? That was my most recent answer to what somatic communication is. If there are any questions, I really hope you will keep track of them and that we can engage further. What I want to say about somatic communication really has a great deal to do with how we do that work. And the reason why we began with the heart is because that work begins with caring. Whether we're talking about caring about what's going on inside our bodies or caring about what goes on outside our skin sac. That care is what guides attention and what guides the possibility that your self-identity will co-compose with the other, will understand the other as self, whether that's a world, whether that's some interior organ in your own body, or whether that, no matter what that is, the whole of the environment. That where you care, you can begin to have somatic communication. You can begin to bring physical attention. And having attention as a physical practice is important. And that's where dance comes in. As dancers, we practice that physicality. And it's ever so important. That physicality allows us to imagine touching something that our flesh is not touching. It allows our imagination to go places as physical form. And because we live in a culture that has not been practicing touch, that has been backing up and leaving touch only for the very surfaces of our body, and that has been leaving touch only for particular things like sexuality, because that's what Western culture has come to with touch, which is absurd. We're really pretty bad at somatic communication. We're really pretty bad at being in relations and relations of intelligence with the world. So that's where dance comes in for me. Dancers are cultural workers that are so essential right now. We need to change culture and make it far more physical. And I don't mean going for a jog. That's not the kind of physicality I'm talking about, although please do go for a jog. But when you do it, touch the world as you're jogging. with all of you. Okay.
So I had loads of questions coming up as you were speaking, but
I hope I'm
yeah,
being provocative. I intend to be
yeah,
provocative.
no,
I
exactly.
can.
And in a way, this is one of the I think the strongest provocation now is that I'm wondering in terms of this call for dancers to in a way being ambassadors for touch, for in a way well-being. In a way, this is kind of often we're called to be ambassadors for well-being, for, you know, members of the community. And one of the questions was, okay, yeah, we are here to promote people being in touch with themselves and in relationship, but sometimes we might be less in touch with our own needs and the care that we need to take for our own selves and our own body and our own somatic communication in a way. So I was wondering, in a way, if you could talk a little bit more about how somatic communication can also be a tool for us to use in moments that might be overwhelming, such as when we're not allowed to touch, for example, like during the pandemic, or where maybe we are in between contracts, so we don't quite know how, you know, this happens to us in the dance community. We don't quite know how to pay our rent at the end of the month, you know, moments of like crises that we might have through our artistic path, but also through our kind of livelihood, and also in moments of great crises in the world, like in the pandemic, where forget somatic practice, we're actually not even allowed to do the most basic of touch, right? So how can we draw and use somatic communication as a practice that can sustain us through these moments, basically?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. We started with our hand on our heart, and the issue to begin with is that as much of an activist as any dancer can be, we are only going to be as good as our self-practice, as what we understand works for us and works in our world. So today is Thanksgiving. Yesterday I teach relational intelligence. It's an online class that takes place on Wednesday morning for me, evening for people in Europe. And because it's Thanksgiving, I really wanted to look at what it means to be grateful, to be thankful. And the relationship between our gratitude and care. And our gratitude, these are two things that live alongside one another. They interweave with one another. But where there is care, there is not necessarily gratitude. When you add gratitude to care, it enhances it. Something else happens. Something gets empowered. So if we do somatic work moving on the inside, you know, caring about that muscle that's kind of tight, or that part of our body that has been struggling, or you know, maybe we are ill for a little bit with who knows, COVID or something. That care that we bring to our seeking well-being, when you bring gratitude to that, it enhances the communication that you can have within. If I'm speaking to you and I'm caring for you, I'm thinking of a care worker fluffing the pillow for an old lady, right? There's care there. There's not necessarily gratitude. If there were, all of a sudden the scale goes up. something changes for the old lady, for sure. Or the child, the baby, you're holding a baby in your arms. If you're caring for the baby, changing the diaper, it's work. When you bring that extra bit, gratitude for the child, it changes the medium through which you are moving the action of care. And we can call it a kind of medium. When you get very attentive to the subtlety of the spaces between beings, then as I've studied, I've felt and sought to understand, what is it about attention that concentrates space? If I bring my two hands together, I've concentrated this space between my hands. It feels different. When the one hand is attending to the other hand, something happens. Like a fascia, perhaps. I like to think of it that way. A fascia that comes and goes very quickly. When I bring that within, using that, and I'm going to call it a medium just because it's fun to, using the medium of gratitude within, then I have access to speaking to within my own physical form so much more. When I allow individuation within my body. Now here's something else I haven't even spoken about, which is how important it is to have respect within. The human form is an emergent form. It is formed by lots and lots of little lives. There's a lot of life within, and it's individuated life. We are a multiplicity of being. And if you go even deeper into another scale of being, we get to the scale of, oh my God, whatever is here that is human, there's no human here where a human being is. It's all stuff of which the whole universe is made. The planet is made, for sure. Water is not human. And the elements that compose water are not human. So the human is something else that we do. And getting to the level of respect for all these forms within and all the actions means that we can start to have communication within, not just sense and feel, but actually get into a somatic communication with. It's very different than just talking at somebody. It requires listening, of course. It requires respect. The respect that would identify and see listening as something significant and important to do. I mentioned how problematic Thanksgiving is because of how it is we have colonized this nation, ignoring the peoples who were already here. And then also bringing peoples who didn't even want to be here and forcing them to be here. We've done that here in the US. Colonizing an object is, we do it all the time. We assume the right to make something our own and do with it as we will. And colonizing is not an act of respect. And so the question I would ask is, have you been colonizing your body? And what would it be if you didn't? If you didn't just tell your body what to do, but you actually engaged with the physical form as an intelligent form, that you offered the possibility of respect for the brilliance that exists within. And in fact, you got to the place where you assumed brilliance within. Now you're talking to some aspect of being that is brilliant. It's not mechanical. You're not talking to a mechanical thing and trying to bend it to your will. Now you're speaking on the level of presence and being. And that's a whole different level of communication. And I would suggest you start there, within. Care, gratitude, respect. Those things are really important. And then stop colonizing the world without. So when you go to pick something up, you fraction of a second of respect. Allowing the thing itself that you pick up. Now Nita is a Nita cup, a cup Nita, with fluid within that is going to end up being me anyway. It's here right now. It already is me. And when I bring that kind of respect here, the dance, this is the dance. I'm always engaged in the dance, the living of dance. Yeah, okay. Did I answer you?
Yes, really strongly. And yeah, I guess the question of did I colonize my body, or did I let my body, I don't know, yeah, did I colonize my body is a really sort of strong questions. It really kind of moved me when you said it.
Yeah.
And I guess I sort of had, before we opened the questions to other members of the community with us now, I sort of had two more topics maybe to discuss, but I have a sneaky question before these two topics. No, it just kind of arose from what you just said. What do you, or how do you navigate a situation in which you're coming from a place of somatic communication, but the entity or the person or the situation you are having to be or are going to be in relation to does not understand it or will not reply in the same way, you know, like where there's kind of a difficulty in
right.
Just because you were talking about the paradox of Thanksgiving, for example, you know, like what do you do? Like, what's the technique?
Okay. Well, here's the important thing to understand, that we're not looking for relations of sameness. We're acknowledging and respecting relations of difference. My relationship to anything does not have to be an equal relationship. In fact, I can co-compose with somebody who has no clue they're co-composing back and no intention. I bring that to the moment. The fact that they're not there, I'm not dependent on that. Any more than I'm dependent on this mug, which has a great Northwestern logo. Check that out. This mug, a whale, you see the whale? We're whales out here. That this mug, I do not require this mug to be in recognition of me. But I respect it as being, doing mugness. And I do not colonize it for other purpose, for purpose that it is not also part of. In my recognition. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you. I have
So that has to do with the environment too.
Yes.
We come, and I think it's very important to say, we come from cultures, and we come from an interpretation of the Bible, of Christianity, that understands and expects that the earth is ours to use. So we are invited to colonize, and this must change. If we want to live in a healthy world, this must change. It begins on every level. It isn't just continents and nations. It's our attitude toward being itself. The dance, in other words, it begins with dancing. How do we dance?
Thank you. So I think I had sort of two more topics to discuss, but I think one of them was somatic communication and the environment, but I think you touched on that already. So I wonder if you wanted to expand more on that, or the other big topic was somatic communication and the digital world. How do we negotiate? Can't do the two things exist together? So I'll let you choose either to expand in one direction, or what do we do with the digital world and somatic communication before we open questions to the table?
You know, I think that's still an open question for me. What I do know is that as soon as I got shut down from touring by COVID, I immediately went online and started doing Zoom classes. And the thing that became really, really clear to me is that some Zoom classes really work, and other Zoom classes end up making me feel alone. Not my own classes, but classes I attend, or jams I would attend. And I've been kind of stunned at how intimate relational intelligence can be when we're all practicing the physicality of attention in our movement, in our dance action. And I would love to let other people who take take relational intelligence speak to that as well. I'm still figuring out why when I'm doing this, do I not feel the same kind of isolation and loneliness that screen relations can produce? I don't really know. I'm still exploring. But there's something there. I think I don't stop at the screen. I think when I see Alex, who is here, I move all the way into his space with him. In a sense, I feel alongside. It's the issue I mostly have with this is how frontal it is. Which is a very kind of tedious form of communication. That frontal communication, it's just tedious.
Shall we open the space to the table now for questions? Sure.
Super fun. I'm having a great deal of fun, everyone. These are fun questions. Thank you so much, Juliana.
Thank you so much for playing.
Yes. It is. It's good play.
Yeah. So yes, if anyone has questions, I just think jump in, right? Or should
Yes,
we
please.
just jump in, basically?
So,
Excuse me. I don't. First of all, it's a very small committee, and my name is Kathleen, and I'm coming in from France. So thank you very much for organizing this this event. I received the newsletter, so I came because I'm very curious to see what people people are doing with this medium. To have discussions and to come together. So I came out of pure curiosity to catch up with Nita, who I haven't seen for many, many years.
yeah, it's such a joy to see you, Kathleen.
Yeah, and so thank you very much for organizing this event. Although at the same time, with this medium, I'm also quite uncomfortable yet in my in this kind of contact online that's not, you know, not physical contact. But I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much, Nita, for what you're articulating, because I'm interested in what you've been developing over the years since I lost contact with you when you were writing your
dissertation.
Yeah, which I would like to read, by the way. And so, yeah, I'm curious to join in on events like this. So thank you very much. I believe you organized. I'm trying to look at you, but I don't know if you see that I'm looking at you.
Yes,
Looking at me?
Juliana. Yeah.
Through Tripspace, yes.
London, and so now I'll sign up for the newsletter from your space as well. And
Thank you.
yeah, so it's interesting to see the players and how things what's happening, in fact, because sometimes I'm feeling quite isolated. I work very much these days with well, all sorts of publics, but very much with the handicapped public, and that's a very vast question. And so the questions of communication and communicating with people who are in very different physical bodies or very different perceptions of reality, it's a very challenging question. So I'm interested in these kind of developments with consciousness, somatic consciousness.
Right.
Resonant for me.
Right. It's really important. How lovely that you're doing that work. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, Kathleen, how important curiosity is to listening and to communication. So communication without curiosity lands very differently, just the way care without gratitude lands differently. And that curiosity that is somatic, that is body-based, touch-based curiosity, really important.
Just increasing our capacity of communication.
It's like, it's not just additive. It increases it by producing something, a new emergent phenomenon, in that, you know, it accelerates communication magnificently. So, yeah.
Have you written more on the subject? Have you written actually?
I have been writing, yes, but mostly what I've been doing, actually, Kathleen, is I have an institute for the study of somatic communication. And the institute is a series of dance ensembles that all together study what somatic communication can be. And so writing that I've done has been for that, about how these various ensembles can network within the ensemble and also between. So that's been a big bit, but I think I do need to get down to it. I write in the newsletter little bits, and sometimes we're going to collect those. I think Leanne is collecting those and putting those on the website. So I'm excited about this new website that she's been creating, because it means that there is this source that people can go to download or to read or to whatever. And so that's exciting.
Yeah, and I think I would like to also, I'll check out what you offer online, because we're very far. You're in Seattle now, no?
North of Seattle, a little bit, yes, I
Yeah.
am. But I travel a great deal now.
Yes, yeah, you still, yeah, I see that.
I'm still on the move.
Yeah. So the groups of dancers that you're working with, that's an international enterprise.
Yes, it is international. It's before COVID, it was in 7 countries.
Mhm.
Or was it 7 locations, but it's, I guess, 6 countries. It's increasing, it keeps increasing, but it also, it took a hit with COVID. So I'm having to reform it in a sense, which is not a bad thing. I mean, that's good work.
And are you working together between London and with Nita, the dancers from London?
No, we haven't worked together. This is new.
Mm.
Yeah.
I wonder, is there anyone else who wants to ask a question or launch a topic in the round?
There were 30 people signed up for this, and
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
interesting that there's only 9 people here.
Whittled down for some reason. Yeah, I know.
I'm sure in the US it has to do with Thanksgiving. We're here in Thanksgiving holiday. So everybody, I mean, Leanne's there cooking her dinner. Yeah,
Happy Thanksgiving.
I mean,
thank you.
this is also like part of the digital, like I'm sure basically there'll be like 22 people emailing me asking for the recording.
Right.
This is the
This
problem
is
a little bit with the digital space, that then now it's very present that
people don't
might
have to show up.
yeah, oh, I had signed up, I couldn't make it. And yeah, so it's a
Well, I
problem.
wonder,
Is it not a problem? Basically, yeah, I don't think we won't hand out the recording, I'm afraid.
Leanne,
I have a question that's not unrelated to that phenomenon that happens. We Nita deals with that in some of her other offerings as well. There will be like 65 people signed up and 30 show up, and it's like such a strange phenomenon. But one of the things I was pondering about while Nita was speaking a little bit about somatic communication in digital land, and how to feel connected that way. And Nita, I know you said that this is something you're still figuring out, but I wonder, in all your wisdom, if you have even some beginnings of thoughts about this. But one of the things that I find challenging in taking somatic-based classes on a digital platform is sort of an accountability thing. Like I could easily just like and do whatever I'm gonna do, and tune out, and so and so there's like a beautiful thing about being in person with each other, because yes, your attention is this gift, but it's also commanded by the others in the space out of like respect and a mutual understanding. And I'm wondering, like, what about accountability changes in the digital space, and how can we preserve that sort of sense of respect or sense of, again, I do think attention is a choice, attention is a gift, but when you're with each other in physical space, there's a different kind of command between one another of the attention. And I'm curious if there's an accountability piece coming.
I think that's such a good question. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Something that occurred to me is that in relational intelligence, nobody can turn their camera off. I mean, I really seriously ask people, do not turn your camera off, because we are working together. So don't be half here, in other words, be all the way. And that's one thing. The other is to learn to bring your physical attention not to the screen, but through the screen. That's really important. So as I speak to Alex, I'm here feeling the wall behind Alex. Alex, you become my person to work with right now. Thank you. I know Alex is in Ukraine. When I go to that whole space that I am physically present to, that is Alex in Ukraine, I'm present with what I know about Ukraine as well. I am just there. And I'm bringing my curiosity, and I'm bringing my respect, and I'm bringing my gratitude. So that as I move, there's no inhibition, and my curiosity, there's no inhibition, the screen does not stop me. And that allows for a different kind of relationship for me with the screen, with the space of digital being. I don't know if I answered, Leanne. The other thing that you provoked by your question is that provocation of thinking about how informal the world has become. And I was thinking about manners and etiquette and all of that we have. And mostly because something came up on Netflix about it, and I was kind of curious. Oh my God, there are people that are interested in studying etiquette in this era. And then I thought about how much, when I was taught etiquette, when I was taught my manners, that I was taught to care. I was taught that manners are caring. And we become incredibly informal. And when there isn't care, manners are ridiculous. It's just ridiculous to start behaving with manners. They're empty. It's empty, and so we don't do it. A lot of different things we don't do that used to happen in the past because we stopped caring in those ways. But that care that is respect and a kind of discipline of presence, bringing care to that discipline seems important, even on screen, because it changes the communication you can be in. It changes what you are, the capacity you have to touch one another. And in this sense, I'm using touch to mean not tactile. Mostly I'm using tactile. When I say touch, I'm actually meaning tactile. So tactile attention, touch-based attention. But in this sense, I'm actually meaning touch, meaning heart level touch. Because they're so related. They're so much, the one supports the other. Yeah. I think I got there, Leanne, eventually.
Nita, I'm aware that we have you for 10 more minutes.
Okay.
So I was wondering, should we ask someone else a question? Or I was wondering if you could offer a practice.
Sure, let's take a moment of practice.
What do you think we should do? Yes.
That's a good idea. And I mean, we're dancers after all. So let's start the way we began, hand on the heart. Taking a deep breath in, a deep breath out. Allowing yourself to notice the boundary that is the surface of your skin. To your front side, your back side, both sides, top and bottom, above, below. And letting yourself Move within, experiencing selfhood within as a multiplicity of being, many being, many beings within that form the singular you. And let yourself move as many, so that as your hands move, you are tuned towards the distinction of each being having its own unique relationship with the earth, with gravity, with weight, its own unique relationship to the space of being, its environment of being, and letting yourself simply feel what it could be.
She lost her.
Oh no.
She lost her.
Has Nita frozen? Oh no. Um,
I assume this is an incredible message from the universe. Keep practicing.
I was right in it. No, this is the problem. On my screen, she froze in such a beautiful pose as well. It was like, I know. This is so unlucky. I don't quite know.
I think she'll probably try to come back into the room and
yes.
say
Luckily,
sayonara.
yeah, you might have you might be able to WhatsApp her or something, because I realized like I actually haven't asked her for her WhatsApp in case this happened.
I'll ping her, but I anticipate she'll try to come back into the room.
Yeah, I might just continue moving, because it feels so
Let's
good.
do it. Let's do it.
Sorry, you guys, when we moved me to the diagonal, I unplugged and didn't notice.
You actually froze in a really beautifully composed pose. And for a second I was like, is she holding space? Or is she frozen? And then we all turned our mics off. I think it was quite funny. Going back to
That's great.
space, it's not quite the same, is it?
No, but we're in this dance, and the dance is a hello dance. So whatever you discover you're in relations with, you simply bring hello. And when that hello happens, you bring the heart, you bring feeling, you bring care. And then extend that multiplicity of being to be hello within the room you're in, the space you're in. Filling and letting the self become larger. And this means the physical self becomes this larger form because you're taking touch with you. You invite volume. You invite touch to exist as spatial. So the top of your head feels the ceiling and says hello. It could be your fingers that are touching. The side of your face maybe feels a wall. Hello. And the act of recognition, re-knowing, knowing again, the act of coming into relations with offers the potential of communication. So you communicate with this room. And that takes me to something that I didn't fully answer, which is, what do you do when your world is collapsing or is difficult? When you have bills to pay and no idea how to do it? How is it that do you step away from your world, or do you enter toward it? Do you collapse and fold within, or do you come into conversation with the very thing that is frightening you, and allowing yourself to step into conversation on lots of scales? So you don't know how to do something? The question comes up, who does? Or how could it be that you could? What do you need to have a conversation with? And moving that as dance. So the conversation may be a non-verbal conversation. It is an embrace of care. You bring care there. Is that making sense? So not backing off, bringing your body, touch, care forward to the very practical, expecting that in an action of respect, instead of expecting that the world is dead and careless, expect that you're in conversation with care itself. Okay? Being in conversation with care, not just your own caring, but that you are in a world of care, means you are in a world that is already intelligent. And that's a choice, but it will help. And don't be surprised if the world speaks back. It's important to notice when the world speaks. Very important to notice when the world speaks. It will be nonverbal. It will be through the dense. It will be through the smallest of things. A butterfly landing on a nearby leaf. Who knows? So I think I did it. I think I came, I went, and I came back again.
And yeah, I think the last sort of words as well that you spoke are actually a really good place to land sort of the experience. And yeah,
I think I would finish, Juliana, with
I have
one
so many
thing.
questions. Yes, go on.
The last thing I would say is trust the dance. Trust yourself and the dance that you are. Deeply trust it. So that you seek into it, so that you inquire of it. You inquire of what you trust. Go there.
Exactly. I was just thinking the words, these words came to my head to emerged. The words that emerged it kind of takes it takes a radical act of courage in a way to have that trust.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Radical act of courage. I like it. And to choose that the world is alive. That takes a radical act of courage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are we doing with the dead world? How's that
Exactly.
going for us, huh? And when I look at it that way, I go, well, the answer's simple.
Dance. No, is it?
Yes. Dance. Let the dance tell you. The dance will open for you.
So I'm sure that I don't know, there could be, I'm sure everyone has lots of other questions. I certainly do. But also I know that it's very sadly 8 o'clock here in the UK, and that in the States you probably have to go to amazing lunches now. So I think we have to wrap it here. And I just hope that we can have more conversations in the near future. And Nita, when is next time that you're coming to London?
Oh, you know, we don't have a time yet.
Oh, because you
I
usually come to
don't
Oakley,
know.
right?
Hi.
I need invitations to come, and without invitations, I haven't really ventured that way. I was there. I had a fabulous time there in April, May, June.
Yeah.
June, I was in London. I was in Bristol, April, May,
Yeah,
June.
nice.
It was
Good.
great. So I'm
Well,
looking for the next event.
we'll conjure something up, I'm sure. Us British people. So yes, thank you for everyone who came, and we'll have to leave it there. How's
Okay,
that?
thank you so much. I want to thank Juliana. I want to thank Kathleen, and I always thank Leanne for this happening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And all of you who came, thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Enjoy the rest of the day or the evening, everyone. Bye.